Hi everyone, welcome into Primetime TV. I'm one of your hosts, Barbara Marville-Kelly, and with me is my husband / best friend and colleague. Hi, Dennis Kelly.
Hi, that's me.
So let me go back and say, Master Dennis Kelly, also 6-time world champion Dennis Kelly.
That's even better.
How do you like that, right?
Yeah, that was done sincerely too.
And you didn't even have to pay me for that.
Yeah, I might have to take it up later, I know.
So we're back after we were so disappointed that we couldn't do our show last week. We had a flat tire and all that la stuff. But
yeah, I tried to tell her it's only flat on the bottom.
Oh, gosh, I'm telling you, you are so full of it these days, and we're going to talk about why. Talk about having more energy, talking about enjoying life to its fullest, and just really taking our health and longevity and everything that we stand up to believe in and share with others, we're going to help deliver today to give you an opportunity to take a look at something that's really been working for us. But let's start with the sad and bad word, stress.
That is the sad and bad word.
It really is, and you have the most beautiful and eloquent way of describing stress, and easy for all of us to understand. And when you hear this, you'll understand why I say that. So let's hear it.
The most important one that I can come up with and that I've been using for years is when the effects of stress, look, by the way, I'm sharing something. Once in a while, I'll what we call a freeze. Or sometimes you might think that I'm shaken or nervous. I'm recovering from Parkinson's, so once in a while it'll hit.
He has a moment.
I have a moment, right.
Okay, so.
All right, when life's events do not meet up with our expectations and we fail to manage the results.
Bingo.
That's stress. And
Bingo.
that covers a lot of territory.
Mm-hmm. It really does. And you know, when you really stop to think about stress and the ravaging effects of it, how it can affect your life, the lives of others, your family members, colleagues, even people that you don't even know that you run into on the street or driving US 19, and you see people that are just not able to manage stress, and so they take it out in ways that maybe they're kind of ashamed of later on. And the reason why I bring this up is because we're seeing more and more of that. Did you know that stress has been dubbed as the 21st century epidemic?
Yeah, there is a big epidemic of stress.
And the thing about that stress, so let's talk about this every time I turn on the news, which isn't very often, but when I do, to check the weather, just to see what's going on, you know as well as I, hon, we're always hearing about the opioid epidemic as well. That's, again, when people fail to manage their stress levels, but I know that there are, there's a good reason for that, for some that may need to, but there's people that are getting addicted to opioids, and it's very, very sad when I hear this, when I see this with friends and children out there. If there's things that we can do to set ourselves up for our body to modulate the cortisol level, right? That to me makes much more sense than taking something to just suppress it. Suppress it. And so we've been doing something for, it's been what now, about 2 months?
Yeah, I would say that.
2 months. Okay, so for 2 months, we started this product called Solera. And we have had just an amazing response. I do want to preface the show by saying we are not claiming any claims to heal, cure, or anything like that. And I just want to make sure that you understand that. But what we do want to share with you is an alternative to maybe some of the things that a person is doing out there, that maybe this might be a better solution to them. But I'm going to turn this over to my husband because, excuse me, I just want to say that when you first started that, it was just a couple hours before you started your Tai Chi class. So I'm going to let you go ahead and talk about that in a minute.
Well, most supplements you take, it takes a long time sometimes to kick in. Mm-hmm. And some never kick in. You know, there's no perfect world. However, the thing about Solera that I noticed was being able to want to engage more. Mm-hmm. That's the word I'd like to use. Feeling more relaxed, being more clerical in the mind where you can come up with more clever ancients and making you feel comfortable with an environment normally you wouldn't feel comfortable with.
That's right.
And what stress is the #1 killer, premature killer of people. It's not the stress, it's the way they interpret it. Just like I mentioned, when life's events do not meet up with our expectation, and we fail to manage the results. We let the stress take over. I tell people, listen, and I mean it sincerely, if you can develop the point where you can handle stress, handle it really well, you are a valuable commodity. Let me tell you something, a big valuable commodity. So that's the thing to work up where you become the stress master. Not stress master in you, but you master stress. There are 2 things that I use in my life every single day. That's don't sweat the small stuff. Rule #1. Rule #2, everything is small stuff. Everything. We're here today and gone tomorrow. What is the reason why people would carry a grudge, or people would be, how would I say it, capsulated by people that are negative and allowing them to get to you? That's one of the laws of nature, is the laws of allowing. The problem is we don't allow people the way they want to be, even though they want us to be the way they want to be. So it's this whole ball game, so to speak, of life. The key to handling stress is realizing that in every negative situation, in everything that happens that's negative, there is a silver lining in the dark cloud. Most people under stress that don't handle it well, opportunities become obstacles. Where if you are into handling stress, obstacles become opportunities. Looking for the lining in the silver lining in the dark cloud. In every dark cloud, there's a silver lining. Just the key thing is you have to get to handling the stress, not just one time. Like athletes, they don't think of the stress level affecting their performance when they're outside the training. But to be a world-class athlete and relate to stress, you have to really become part, in other words, that is a big issue where you are able to be the master, where nothing floats your boat.
And to that point, we consider ourselves stress masters. We've been through it all. Trust me when I tell you, it hasn't been a bed of roses. Things have happened in our lives, circumstances. When you were diagnosed with a thing that we don't even like to give the energy to the word, and things of that nature. And of course, me with my torn meniscus and my poor little arm here that had that challenge. And again, we're not making any claims to diagnose, treat, or cure here today. We're just letting you know that we're the average person on the street, really. And so we're always looking for different ways to give us that little bit of an upper edge, okay? Believe me, we are stress masters. From some of the crazy things that have happened in our lives, with my husband going and competing for ever since I've been with him. I mean, there's a lot of stress in athletes training, like he said, the stresses that they go through, and just to get wrap your head around what you're competing in, whether you're going for the gold with the Olympic medals, or you're competing around town and you want your peak performance to be at its top and you on your game. Believe me when I tell you, my husband has already been able to do that ever since I've known him for almost 22 years. However, we've noticed that we've taken it to even a higher level of just modulating the stress and really allowing our body to become that healing miracle. And we're so excited about it. But you know what? Here's the thing. We bring information to you, and it's all based on science, the professionals, the research, the studies, the clinical studies that have done. We report it to you, and then you can make up your own mind. But we happen to have a very special lady that is going to share a webinar with you, who we've known for many, many years, and she is a biochemist. It's Rena Davis. So I want you to sit back and listen to what Rena has to say, and she knows her stuff about what stress can do to the body, and it is just unbelievable. And once you understand that, then you know what's happening to you when stress hits. So I'm going to let Rena take it away, and we'll be right back after this.
As we began thinking about stress and the challenges it brings in our life, I was talking with Rena earlier. We were talking about a guy by the name of Anthony Williams, and he said, when we're under stress, adrenaline pumps into the liver, which puts us at risk for countless symptoms and conditions, including liver disease. It breaks down our bile reserves, breaks down hydrochloric acid in the stomach. Even in young people, livers today are being bombarded with the effects of excess adrenaline. Think about that and what it's doing to your liver. You begin to understand why it's so important that we have liver support. And it was interesting that, some stress facts. Stress leaves 80% of women feeling unable to cope compared to 67% of men who feel the same. Now listen to this. The Mental Health Foundation surveyed more than 4,600 people and found 18 to 24-year-olds are more stressed than their parents. So it affects our brain. Matter of fact, some people say it actually could cause brain shrinkage, that stress can cause muscle loss, weakened internal organs, diminished eyesight and hearing, even compromised mental abilities, all of which are typical symptoms of accelerated aging. Even at a cellular level, stress can do more than just promote inflammation. It can even cause life-shortening damage, studies show. So is this an important subject tonight? Absolutely. The ravages of stress. And I'm so delighted that we've got a biochemist here, Rena Davis, coming to the table to talk to us a little bit about these ravages of stress. Welcome to the call tonight, Rena. Great to have you.
Hey, thanks, Rob. Stress is abundant in life today, and it doesn't seem to be changing. I tell my clients that the one thing you can count on about stress is it's always going to be there. It's just somehow it changes flavors every now and again to keep things kind of interesting. It's been interesting in talking with a number of my clients about stress that we really feel that stress is some kind of outside factor. But literally, the medical definition of stress is the physical or biological or psychological effect that causes stress in an organism and its response to stressors. Now, stressors can be emotional, they can be financial, they can be environmental, they can be biochemical, they can be due to surgeries, medications, losing a pet. There are so many factors that are actual stressors that it sets up this condition, stress in the body, which then triggers a whole cascade of chemistry inside of us to help our body cope with what's going on at that moment. Now, a major stress, even if it only lasts for a very short period of time, causes these same chemical reactions. Adrenaline, everybody knows about adrenaline. We've all experienced that, I think, at least once in our lives. Even if it was just somebody momentarily pulling out of us unexpectedly in traffic, we all know the effects of a little bit of adrenaline. But, adrenaline, as Rob just referred to, has been studied, numerous studies since the 1960s. There were some a little before that. But basically, since the 1980s through the current time, we're beginning to look at stress in a much more in-depth way. There are literally thousands of studies that have been done on stress. And, the reason is that we've come to understand that there are all of these things that can happen inside of us as a response to those stress hormones going off and going a little crazy. Some of these are probably a little less known than others. I mean, certainly we know, I think, as a broad population, that stress can cause elevated blood pressure. In some individuals, it can actually cause reduction in blood pressure. Too low isn't any better than too high, folks, in case you were wondering about that. But did you know that it can cause hair loss, especially in the female population? Now, this is kind of interesting. You have these chemicals inside of your body called androgens, And when we're under stress, especially prolonged, like we've been going through for at least the last decade and a half, where it's chronic. It's happening day in, day out, every day. And we don't really know what to do about it. We don't really know how to alleviate it. We just sort of creeps up on us and it's there all the time. And we only know when we start jumping out of our seats when somebody comes home from school or work. And even though we know it's about time for that to happen, we hear the door close and we jump. Or we come home from work at night and the babysitter looks like she's gone about 5 rounds with Muhammad Ali in his prime, and the kids are tearing the place up and screaming and hollering, and before you know it, you're coming through the door and you're screaming and hollering too. So as these antigens start to build up in the system chronically, they literally can cause hair loss. One of the bigger concerns, and there's literally billions of dollars worth of products being produced right now for something called alopecia, which is what appears to be sudden hair loss. It's really not sudden, except the symptom of it. All of a sudden, you've got big handfuls of hair coming out in the shower every morning or when you comb your hair. But the androgens have been building up in the system for weeks and even months until finally we get that place where the straw that breaks the camel back happens, and all of a sudden, we're losing our hair by the handfuls. Another one that the androgens affect is acne. And we see this, I mean, years ago when I was a kid in school, acne was around. That was sort of the beginning of the bad food diet. In the 50s, we were still eating stuff that we grew in our own gardens, canned, froze, dried in our own homes. All the things that are available to us today were not available in the grocery stores, and diets were still pretty healthy. And in fact, if you got a soda pop once a month when you went to the movies, that was considered, being in a privileged level of income, because it just didn't happen all the time, and it wasn't considered to be healthy by our parents and our grandparents. Today, acne strikes young people, and we're talking young, up to the age of 30 to 35, 10 times more frequently than it did from 1950 to 1960. Androgens. We know that certainly continuous stress can cause headaches or hypertension, but did you know that it can actually cause jaw and tooth pain? Now, some of that is believed because when we're overstressed, we'll clench our teeth at night. When we do that over and over and over again, this causes irritation in our mouth. It can lead to gum recession. It can actually lead to fractured teeth, and also because of the gum resection, the part of our tooth that literally should always be underneath the gum has less dentin protection, and so it can also lead to cavities. Another one that's pretty interesting is itchy skin. Have you ever just experienced that your skin is itching for absolutely no apparent reason? There doesn't seem to be a bug bite. You didn't use any new lotions. You didn't, nothing makes any sense of why you should be itching. And it can go intermittently all day long. If it keeps on happening over a period of time, then rashes can actually develop. And if you've ever gone to a dermatologist and had a skin rash and they said to you, well, you have eczema, and the doctors can't find any physiological reason for that, although they don't do the in-depth testing on the hormones and androgens and other chemical factors that can cause that, lots of times it's because of chronic stress. We see it a lot in our young people today. I think kids are really stressed about the world that they're moving into. It's harder and harder when kids graduate for them to get into college. The sticker shock goes up about that all the time. I mean, right here in downtown Portland right now, if you were going to Portland State, and if you're in the northern part of Oregon, that's the next stop once you've got out of the community colleges. Your tuition price is going to triple. If you're going to live anywhere within 15 miles of the school, you're probably going to pay $2,400 a month for a bachelor apartment, and usually there's going to be 6 or 8 kids living in a little tiny flat with one bathroom, one teeny tiny kitchen, and everybody's crashing on the floors. So our kids are going through a lot of stress, and they know that as they come out of school, the competition for good jobs out there is ever increasing. And so we begin to see that there is a higher percentage of eczema, skin rashes, chronic itchy skin, which most doctors will control with steroid creams, which actually work for a while, but it never gets better. It seems to take more and more all the time. Certainly, it's interesting to note that the effects of stress on the body where sexual performance and fertility are concerned. Certainly, many women don't know this, I'm pretty sure, just based on the number of people that I deal with year after year after year. But irregular periods, painful periods, heavy cramping, heavy bleeding, that can be caused by stress, quite simply stress. Certainly a bad diet aids in that. When you get stressed out, well, very often we're looking for those things to try and calm us down dietarily, so it leads us to more carbs. And then when our energy gets too low, then we start craving sugar to pick our energy up, and you can see the yo-yo syndrome right there. But it's very interesting to study fertility. In animal studies that have been done, where there is a lot of stress from new predators that have come in from other countries, species that aren't normal to the North American continent, beginning to push other species out of their habitat, environmental concerns from toxins from, well, you can say forest fires. I mean, boy, we're seeing that in California right now, aren't we? Pretty awful. Pesticides, herbicide, other environmental pollutants from, all the cars on freeways to factories, the list goes on. Some species, it will actually increase sexual drive and sexual performance to create more offspring for that species to survive. In the human species, that doesn't happen too often except in times of war. In times of war, there is this funny thing that happens in humans where our sexual activity is peaked, our hormone production is peaked, and generations are born with a much higher population. And look at what happened after World War II. My generation is the highest generation. The next 3 generations after us don't even come close to holding the amount of population that my generation has. And everybody's worried about that because the next generations are supposed to support all of us old folks here going into Social Security, and the population of the next generations is too small to be able to do that. It's just a fascinating study. Well, what really happens then? Rob was kind enough to talk a little bit about cortisol and adrenaline. Adrenaline gets pumped out, and a lot of it goes to the liver. And one of the messages that the adrenaline is carrying, because it's a hormone, right? Hormones are sort of the directors of biochemistry in the human body. And so it goes to the liver and it says, look, it's an emergency and it's a bloomin' big one. So you better get that glycogen production up and get that out to the muscle so the muscle has energy to do the fight, flight, or fight. And it works. I mean, that's part of the reason that you can get so pumped up with so much energy. The problem is that if it keeps happening and keeps happening and keeps happening, we now know that stress alone can create, the nice way to say it is fatty liver syndrome. Fatty liver syndrome is cirrhosis. And it doesn't matter whether it's being caused by medication, too much alcohol, too many drugs, or too much stress. The effect in the liver becomes the same. So how important is it for each and every one of us to be very serious about learning how to help our bodies rebalance when it's in fight flight? Pretty darn important indeed. We go on from there to recognize that there are numerous other things, literally physical diseases, that can happen in our body. That the stress can lead us vulnerable to a depressed immune system. It can lead to irregularity, inability to regulate blood sugar properly, and can lead to things like type 2 diabetes. It can lead to several forms of cancer. It can make you sore and achy and cranky all the time, because when those stress hormones are chronically at fight flight, our pH goes off. Now, when the pH goes off, we get into some pretty serious stuff, because the blood can only tolerate the teeniest, tiniest deviation in pH, acid alkaline regulation, without the red blood cell membrane starting to break. So when we're in chronic fight flight, the first thing that happens is we send out tons of glycogen so that all the muscles and all the organs have the fuel that they need to meet the demand. When that doesn't go away, however, the next step is that we start robbing nutrients from our dietary intake to help regulate pH, especially of the blood. But the catch-22 in that scenario leads us down a very strange course, because we want foods that tend to calm the system down. So we want the cookie, we want the donut, we want the cup of coffee. Look it up on the internet. What do you get from those foods? Get any zinc, calcium, magnesium, potassium? Those are only important for muscle contraction, including heart function. So you can kind of see what begins to happen. Then that does a downward spiral on blood sugar regulation. So now we've got another internal red alert going on, because the brain, through this pituitary hypothalamic adrenal axis, is trying to modulate all of these biochemical processes inside of our body. And pretty soon, this up and down of blood sugar gets a little chronic, and we're pumping out more insulin and then less insulin and then more insulin. And pretty soon your blood sugar is like the best roller coaster you've ever been on in your whole life. We can see that, and these are just a few of the things. Now, we talked a minute ago just about this hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis. This is really kind of important, because we're really talking now about the master controlling system. This is critical, because those guys tell every endocrine how much hormone to produce and when to produce it. It also regulates neurotransmission. Neurotransmitters are really important, because they define who we are, whether we're happy or whether we're sad, whether we sleep, whether we don't sleep, whether we crave sugar and carbohydrate or whether we don't. And, the body does compensate with all this craziness going on with pH and liver toxicology and poor bile production, which then, by the way, minimizes your ability to separate fats from proteins. So now we're not getting the fats emulsified as the best and highest calorie fuel source for us. The proteins aren't getting separated. So now we have an introduction of a problem with supply and demand. Those proteins break down into amino acids that produce all of our hormones, all of our neurotransmitters, all of our digestive and protective enzymes. So I think you're kind of starting to get the point here that in the body, we have all of these reactions going on. And this can lead to headaches, heartburn, rapid breathing, increased depression, weakened immune system, insomnia, and the list goes on, hair loss. I mean, done long term, and there's studies going on about this right now that I think that are going to verify it. But if any of you have ever dealt with people with severe psychological disorders, we're now finding that these chronic stressors are actually the setup for some of these things that we never knew about before. I hate to think of the number of people that are taking psychoactive medications who definitely need it. But if we were correcting the stressors and then correcting how our body responds to those stressors, rebalancing blood sugar, rebalancing pH, bringing our fuel-getting system called the digestive system back online and functioning correctly. Now we are providing the raw materials at the cell level, at the organ level, at the hormonal level, the neurotransmitter level, the managing director level of the body, back into alignment. And that definitely affects our appetite. And all of a sudden, those sugary foods and those starchy foods become less important to us because those systems are being managed and balanced. So now we're talking about having an effect on underweight. We're talking about having effect on overweight. We're talking about having effect on obesity. We're having an effect on type 2 diabetes, and the list goes on. It is just very interesting as we really study the hypothalamus, pituitary, and adrenal axis, that this actually controls the entire musculoskeletal system, the respiratory system, cardiovascular system, endocrine system, nervous system. Okay, not just part of the nervous system, the entire nervous system, which is very complex, as I'm sure you're aware. Female reproductive system, male reproductive system, and gastrointestinal system. Now, you guys have been around long enough to know that we say that 70% of your immune system lives in your gut. Anything that affects the gastrointestinal system chronically over time is going to result in some serious problems down the road. The way I explain it to my clients is, look, we all have an army, every one of us. I mean, we've got the generals, we've got the corporals, the sergeants, we've got the foot troops, we've got the Green Beret man, we got the Navy, we got it all inside of us all of the time. But the reality is this: if you can't give these guys communication with each other, if you can't give them bullets for their guns, gas for their jeeps, boots for their feet, and a sandwich for their tummy, that army isn't going anywhere. And we're cutting it off at the pockets by disturbing endocrine function, neurotransmitter function, hormonal function, but one of the biggest is the gastrointestinal, because that's where we get rid of at least 70% of our metabolic waste. It's where 70% of our immune system is, and it's where we get 100% of the fuel that we need to take care of our Army, our Navy, our Marine Corps, and oh, by the way, all of those citizens out there that are making the shoes and making the scarves and getting the groceries to the grocery store. All of that system is being affected by the body's response to chronic outside stressors. In reality, when I first learned about Solera and started researching what this product actually is, what its track record is, that I still haven't gotten through all of the studies that have been done on this product. I'm not talking about second-party literature on this herb or that herb, and we use that. It's important because, you know, it helps us learn that if we put a little turmeric or a little garlic or a little rosemary in our food, we're actually hedging our bets, you know, digestively, immunologically, anti-inflammatory, all those things. But the reality is, when stress becomes chronic for so long, over so much time, we really need help. I don't know a single practitioner anywhere on this planet that wouldn't tell you today our biggest number one concern is stress management. And there is billions of dollars being invested in studying the effects and what we can do about it. Many of the companies that are secondary companies, sort of Reader's Digest companies, that put out blurbs every month, maybe a paragraph or two, or you can click there and go look at the actual study. They're all starting to study adaptogens. They have all come to realize that these stress factors, as the world goes faster, as resources get more and more in demand, as pollution becomes a bigger and bigger issue. I mean, all of these things are beginning to have this really downward spiral on our health. And you start reading study after study after study after study on Solera. And I love to read this stuff at night. I really do. The world is quiet. The phone isn't ringing. I can really concentrate. I can be at my computer. I can look up all the secondary information. I can see who all these doctors are. Was this a study designed to get the result they were looking for? Or is it a real study where they designed it to see what the actual result was? And trust me, they're done both ways. I can't even read this stuff at night because now I get so excited every time I read another one. Instead of helping me go to sleep because I burned up my extra mental energy, it's giving me more mental energy. This is what we have to look forward to with this product. I personally believe that this is the one product that I've been looking for at least 12 years, something to help my clients modulate stress response in the human physiology, because the body pretty much knows how to take care of you, but we have to know how to help it take care of us, especially when we're chronically exposed to these outside stressors that affect our biochemistry in an adverse way when it becomes chronic.
Welcome back in, everyone. I hope this gave you quite an education on what happens when we fail to manage the ravaging effects of stress. And it's kind of a downer listening to that, isn't it?
Well, in a way it does, but then if you look at the flip side of it, it gives you the ammunition.
Yes.
To fight that army, like she said in that speech that she was so eloquent and really hit the button on the head, so hit the nail on the head, so to speak. And it really gave us insight to things that we normally don't think about. And I used that metaphor of the army soldier cells in the body.
Yes.
And she was correct, hit it right on the head, that what happens is these soldier cells are programmed from the brain to fight in disease or not to fight in disease. When the person is negative and doesn't handle stress right, then the soldier cells are dormant. The brain tells them, this person doesn't want to live.
Thank you for saying that, and you say it in your talks and your workshops and everything. When someone is faced with whatever it is that they're faced with, or they just want to give up, there's people out there that they just get so over the top in overwhelm, and they just go like, what's the use? They are in that state of hopelessness. And the one thing that we try to educate people on is, you know what, as long as your ticker's ticking, you've got the hope that you need. And the thing that my husband also says is that when you think about those soldiers in the body, it's fight or flight. And if they will get that message from your attitude, from the way you handle yourself and the way you handle stress, and they just put down their arms. They go, hey, this person doesn't want to live anymore. They don't want to take care of themselves anymore. We're done too. Isn't that true?
Well, that's true, and it shows that most diseases have a psychosomatic component to them. And when you start realizing things that we can control these things by controlling our attitude. People that have a good attitude, well, the thing is, happiness is basically the makings of a good attitude. You cannot be happy if you don't have a good attitude. And stress works on that attitude. Why me, but God? Why this? Why that? Why does this happen to me? The more you say this doesn't happen to happen to me, it will happen.
That's true.
You just have to look ahead and say, picture what health you want to become, visualize that, feel it, and then go about doing what it takes. There's enough videos out there, enough books written on managing stress. So it's so important that you engage yourself. If you look at it like a war, I like this, the way I handle it, it's like slaying the dragon. What is the dragon? The dragon is not the person that's creating that stress for you. You're creating a stress from inside your reaction to that person or things or opportunities that are lost. So what happens is when somebody says something that would normally stress me out, I look at that as the dragon. So I'm going to slay that dragon with whatever means I can. So you're not really jumping on the person or the situation. You're looking at how you handle it inside. So you become dragon slayers. That's what I open a lot of my seminars. I am a world-class dragon slayer.
And you've been known for that ever since you wrote your book as the Dragon Slayer. Now there are good dragons.
It's in the title of my book.
There's good dragons and bad dragons, and the bad dragons we're talking about is the ravaging effects of stress.
Right.
And it can affect us. I was taking notes while Rena was talking to you guys out there. accelerates aging.
Oh, yes.
Think about that. Accelerates aging. And when you think about that, you know what? Life is so beautiful. We're so blessed to have a healthy life. And in order to continue on with a healthy life, we need to do our homework and we need to be accountable for our health. And believe me, we've had some of our challenges. And again, I want to make sure that I stress the fact that we are not making any claims to diagnose, to cure, or prevent any diseases whatsoever. I just want to make sure that I get that out there to you. But if you're in a situation, maybe you think you handle stress pretty good, and I applaud you for that. Maybe you feel that you are a master at stress and you're teaching others, like we do. But even a plumber has leaky pipes, if you know what I mean. And there's been some overwhelming times in our life, and we decided to do the homework with Rena Davis, Rob Whitty, and Karen Justison. Thankful to these people who we've known since 2003. That's 16 years we've known these people, we've known their integrity, we've known about the studies, and just the overall win-win situation that they're looking for anyone that will listen. And you're listening to us today about what we do for stress, and now we've just added this extra component, and we feel that it's working out for us, and we'd love for you to go and find out a little bit more information, or you can always get a hold of us, and we're going to put our little link up there that belongs to us, and if you want to find out and more about it, the cost and how it is, we're not going to ask you to sign up for this or that or a big huge orders or anything like that. We're not going to ask you to sell the product or anything like that. We are in this to win it for you and for ourselves, because stress, as you heard Rena say, stress today is so running rampant. Take a look, listen to the news. Take a look, listen to the politics. Oh my goodness. I can't even listen to it anymore, all right? Take a look at what's out there in the real world. Take a look at what's happening with our teens, our young children. Take a look at the abuse that's going on because people have failed to manage their results to stress. And if we can impart this knowledge to you, and you can take a simple little 2 ounces of something that just might help you manage your stress levels, would it not be worth it? I mean, think about what's going on in your family. I know moms and dads, some of them that I see working around here, some of them are working 2 and 3 jobs and trying to make ends meet. Some people are still renting for many, many years and they haven't been able to purchase a home for whatever reason. And it's just like they're chasing it, they're chasing it, they're chasing it, that degree of success. And what comes with that is stress. From the minute we wake up in the morning, just the sounds of an alarm clock, right?
Absolutely.
We don't anymore. We wake up to Joy FM. So it comes out with Christian music and prayer and scripture and things like that. So we attack any little stressor that we possibly can. And I know you're just itching to say some more, aren't you?
Well, I'm always itching to say something.
Go ahead.
But the key thing to get people to realize that they can't control this. We're not going back in our Paleolithic ancestor days. Mm-hmm. There was very simple, there was not too many concept changes. In other words, you'd kill the food that you're going to eat, and then you go back, proliferate, and then there's no in-between. We were not genetically engineered to handle this amount of stress. Mm-mm. Our mental evolutionary part of our life over the period of thousands of years has improved tremendously. But the emotional part has not kept up with the mental part.
Bingo.
77% of the population out there are negative. In other words, they have more negative vibrations than positive vibrations. The key thing is to oscillate, or actually I should say resonate, in an area that's high, good thinking, where good chemicals go into the body. In other words, think of 2 cups here. One is poise, one is poison. Which one do you want to drink out of? Obviously we want to drink out of the poise, not poison, but most people don't realize they don't feel that they can control it. It's not that they can't control it, they can't control it inside. They can't change sometimes the stimulus that's creating that stress, but they can change the way they react to it. Because a whole cascade of bad chemicals go into the body. Corticotropin, what's the other one? The death hormone?
Oh, cortisol. Cortisol. But we need cortisol. Tell them real quickly. How much time do we have, John?
That's the killer agent is cortisol. And cortisol, when it becomes overabundant, it's like acid dripping in the system. Everything shuts down and you start aging dramatically fast. The key thing is we need cortisol, though. It's considered a death hormone, but if you don't have any cortisol, you're worse off than, in some ways, having too many.
Yes, I'm glad you said that.
So the key thing is to balance that. And the balance comes from basically the good hormones in your body, the DHEA, dihydroepiandrosterone sulfate. Those are the good hormones, and the key thing is to balance it. What a lot of people don't realize, the same glands that produce cortisol produce the good hormones in the body, the HGH. When the HGH and the cortisol are in balance, that's why when cortisol is balanced, especially with the sclera, that is the balancing situation.
It's the balancing act.
It gives you another thinking from the soldiers inside of it. It gives you the H-bomb.
I love that.
It gives you the H-bomb.
Let's back up.
They can't even touch you in some cases when you do.
No, when you deal with, you know how to handle stress, but I want to back up real quickly to bring up this point that you said. So if I understood you correctly, when you handle the stress levels, you manage that, are you saying that it affects your HGH, which is human growth hormone?
Well, dihydroepiandrosterone is not HGH. It's DHEA is what we're talking about. I might have said HGH.
But overall,
overall it does, because that affects the human growth hormone.
That's what I was trying to find out.
Oh yeah, because as we get older, we get less and less and less, and that's the secret of longevity, is having good HGH. Well, the way you can have good HGH is dihydroepiandrosterone sulfate combined to balance the cortisol. Then you are in a situation, you will put good hormones into the body. It would take almost an act of Congress to make you get sick. So that's where the balance comes in so much. And that's where we have the personal responsibility. A great book written by a woman named Weiss.
Anna Weiss?
Anna Weiss. It's called the high performance mind. What is the high performance mind? One that can handle stress, one that can adapt to any situation that is beneficial and actually strengthening our situation in being healthy. In other words, controlling those emotions. Anybody can control your emotions to the point where you reach a state of imperturbability where nothing rocks your boat, you can handle anything. That is such a rare group of people.
You know,
those kind of people are going to make a fortune in income. They're going to make a fortune in health. When I say make a fortune, because you really have to have the responsibility in your hands. The answers are out there.
Yes.
And we're just becoming, my wife and I are becoming eclectic of the eclectic.
We research the researchers, and believe me, we do just that. Before we start taking any kind of a product or do any kind of a system, well, we've been on our own system now called Tri-Neuro-Genics, is balancing the mind, body, and spirit. And we've been doing that now for, gosh, ever since I've known you. You were doing it even before me.
I've been doing it since I was 19 years of age.
Yeah, and you know, when you stop to think about what's going on out there in the world today, affects us all. Our children, our grandchildren. I mean, think about it. Were you with us for the whole webinar with Rena Davis? She made a point of the 18 to 24-year-olds are more stressed than their own parents. And when you stop to think about it, because don't even get me started about the digital age, even though I love my phone, I love my FaceTime with my grandson or anybody that, you know, will go on FaceTime with me because it's just so cool. I remember when we imagined and envisioned that, and we even said, do you think we'll ever see the day come where we'll be able to have a phone conversation and actually see the person? It's so awesome. However, it has its drawbacks. Check out the studies on what is happening to children today that are on this more than a certain amount of time. I'm thankful that my grandson is not. He's extremely, very, very limited on it. But when you think about the 18 to 24-year-olds, they're right in that group of individuals, what they're going to do in life after they graduate from school. But the biggest thing is how to handle going through all those years in school. They've got their parents at home, and they're trying to make ends meet. And the whole thing can cascade into just one stress mess unless you learn how to manage your emotions and imagine how you can actually really put it all together and make the perception to where it works best for you. And sometimes, you know what, taking a product like we're doing here with the Solera, it just adds that extra, it's an extra tool in our toolbox. Well, what we do at home is we eat clean, we eat organic as much as we possibly can all the time, because if I have to eat all organic at every single meal, that will stress me out. Sometimes it's not possible. So I make sure that I scrub my veggies or my fruits and all that, but for the most part, we do eat organic and have for a while. But at home, you can come to our home at any time and you will hear nothing but relaxation music, right, hon?
Absolutely.
We turn on the news just to catch up with this or that, or to see what the pollen level is, or if it's going to freeze in Florida, you know, things like that. Or we'll watch a movie, like last night we watched Creed, what was just a great movie, and we really try to keep our stress levels down. We spend a lot of time with our family, with our pets, and it's all out there for you if you will just engage and if you embrace the alternatives to living a stressful life. It doesn't have to be that way. It's like acid dripping in our veins if you do not handle the stress. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it. Gosh, I exhaust myself because I get so excited.
Well, they can tell you live life with a passion.
Well, I do, and I love doing these shows, as I have in the past for, gosh, over 20 years when I was at HSN. I've never had anything quite like this. And like I say, you know, everybody gets different results from, you know, different strokes for different folks, as they say. You know, there's all kinds of products out there. There's all kinds of this and that, of pills and potions and gels, and it drives me nuts. We have people asking us to take a look at products all the time. And while, you know, we're very respectful, we'll take a look, but we do have a list of criteria to get our questions answered.
Something I'd like to, I don't mean to interrupt, but
no, go right ahead.
I would like to interject in here. Everything in life is a vibration. This table is a vibration. All the molecules in this table are vibrating. Everything is vibrating.
Right.
As a human being, think of this like a thermometer. And it goes 1 to 10 upward, 1 to 10 downward. 1 to 10 upward is positive feeling, positive thinking, keeping yourself in a positive frame of mind. At 1, you're sort of vibrating at not a negative, but at a low level of positive. And then 2, 3, get up to 10 where it's euphoria. However, you can't stay at 10, you have to balance yourself. You resonate in an area there, like I chose to resonate around 5. Just use an imaginary number, but there's a lot of truth to this. The key thing is to stay above what we call flatlining. That's between the one of each, the negative and the positive one. So if you're there, the problem is if you flatline, you would fall for anything because you don't have a positive, you don't have a negative. So you're easily affected by the surroundings. However, when you look at life like that, when you resonate, say, at 6 and 7 points above positive, then all the good things happen to the body. Things are brought to you, people that resonate at the same frequency level. They found out in research now that they tend to attract each other, even if you don't know them.
The law of attraction.
That's right, absolutely. 4 laws. I won't get into the laws, but the first one is the law of attraction. The second law is the law of deliberate creation, where you understand the first law so that you know that you can control your life. It's sad that people aren't born with a manual. We're just not born with a manual. But going back to that frequency level, if you vibrate at a certain frequency, and you know, if you look at it like, if I resonate above 1, I'm going to be healthier and be happier. So the key thing is to keep that resonating in a positive area. Sometimes we have to go backwards into a negative. For example, we're sort of slow on helping something or doing something. Sometimes you have to give yourself a kick in the butt.
Yep.
The butts, you know, I need to do this, but.
No buts.
That ugly butt. No, eliminate that word.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I just want to, we're getting ready to close the show. So I want to say thank you for joining us here today, and I want you to take a serious look at your stress level, because that's the stress, if it goes unhandled. I mean, take a look around you. Take a look at your own immediate family. What about friends? I mean, and we've done this. We've done this already. We have had friends that have been under insurmountable, constant, chronic stress levels, and we've seen the end results. We've seen the end results. And it's just very sad because, like we said before, it's like that stress hormone called cortisol. Even though you do need some cortisol in balance, it's like poison dripping into your bloodstream.
When you get past that first level of, or go down that first level negative, down the 2-3 levels down, the chemicals you put in your body are just horrendous.
They are horrendous. So, you know, just think about it. If you're ready to make a change, go to our website, newyouage.mysolera.com. Give us a call, private message me, and I'll be happy to get back with you. But you know what? Life truly is a joy, and it's definitely worth living. I want to live it optimally. I want to slow down the aging process. And for me, this has taken us to a different level. And again, different strokes for different folks. You may be happy with your program, whether you're taking supplements, whether you're just eating really good. That's awesome. Make sure you get some exercise. It just helps lift. It's a total picture. It's a whole mind, body, spirit. And take a look at what you think. In fact, assess yourself. And we'll see you next time with more great things on Prime Time.